Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and this is the channel where I went to business school so you didn't need to, and today we are talking about Palantir Technologies PLTR stock. So we're going to be going over their latest news updates, price predictions, and where the stock price is going to be headed both in the short term and over the long term. We are going to be analyzing 3 articles in this video. The first one is titled, Palantir Announces Expansion of Federal Cloud Service with DoD IL6 accreditation. So we're going to be going over in depth about what that means and how it's fantastic news for Palantir as a company. Then we're going to jump over and talk about why Palantir is actually engaged in a very bad lawsuit right now and how some investors are backing this lawsuit against Palantir Technologies. So we will be going over the latest news updates for that and if you want to join it or not and my thoughts about that. And then finally, we're going to discuss their Q3 earnings report, which is approaching. We're going to talk about what metrics financially are they set to bring in for the revenue and earnings per share. We're going to talk about when this earnings report will be debuted and launched and how Palantir's stock price is going to react to it. Is this going to be a positive or a negative Q3 earnings report? And from all these together, we're going to try to project the future stock price of the PLTR share price. So without further ado, I just say we should jump into this article, but first remember to go and smash the like button right now. Comment your thoughts down below, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and without further ado, let's jump right into it. So today, Palantir Technologies, ticker symbol PLTR, which is a big data and analytics company that serves both commercial clients as well as government enterprises, which interprets data, which allows the management of various organizations to make data-driven decisions, has recently announced that its federal cloud service offering has received a DoD Impact Level 6, also known as an IL6 PA from the Defense Information Systems Agency. So what does all of this mean? Basically, this is a very exclusive license that will allow Palantir to work on a cloud basis with the DoD. And to put this into perspective, this is a very difficult license to get. This means that only 3 companies right now have this particular clearance type, and that would be Palantir, Microsoft, and Amazon. So Palantir has literally joined the likes of Microsoft and Amazon in terms of their ability and their offerings that they can contribute to the DoD in terms of cloud services. So this is absolutely fantastic, and this IL6 provisional authorization from the DISA, which is the Defense Information Systems Agency, is absolutely insane. This is a very exclusive authorization that Palantir now holds, which hopefully will lead to bigger and better contracts with the Department of Defense. The Chief Technology Officer, also known as a CTO of Palantir Technologies, even commented about Palantir obtaining this new authorization, and he says, and I quote, "We remain steadfast in our commitment to provide leading software technology to the U.S. government." Alongside Deputy Secretary Hicks' top innovation priorities in enterprise cloud computing and artificial intelligence, we are excited by the possibilities of what our partners across the government and industry will develop with Palantir Federal Cloud Services, end quote. So this is absolutely amazing news for Palantir Technologies, and this is a huge step forward for the company. Now, I don't anticipate that this great news will be reflected in the stock price as of right now, and we'll talk more about that later because there are a lot of negatives coming up for the PLTR stock, which I think will cause the PLTR stock price to drop, but more on that later in the video. I also want to say that a senior architect from Palantir Technologies had to say this, and I quote, "At Palantir, we design systems that address the unique constraints and mission goals for our partners." He goes on to say, "This accreditation is a testament to that. The expansion will address growing scale consideration and offer robust data protection as the department adopts new digital capabilities and critically will provide easier access to the people who rely upon software every day for their most essential missions," end quote. So again, this is fantastic news for Palantir. They have gained this very exclusive exclusive type of accreditation and authorization, and it makes Palantir extremely competitive now, and I can't wait for contracts revolving around this authorization to start flooding in to Palantir Technologies. I also want to mention that we've also talked about two other contracts that Palantir has landed as of late. For instance, we talked about Palantir landing their $85 million 5-year U.S. Army contract to support its prognostic and predictive maintenance and supply chain optimization efforts. Because remember, Palantir, particularly their software, is very good, and their operating systems are very good at solving supply chain issues and optimizing supply chains. Also, I want to mention that the even bigger contract, which I was very impressed with, is Palantir won a $229 million deal to deliver and develop artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities to special forces, the joint staff, and basically every branch of the United States Army, which is absolutely insane. So, not in this earnings report, but probably in the next earnings report and the one after that, these contracts will be reflected in those. But we will talk more about the earnings report at the end of this video, because now I want to go over the lawsuit that Palantir is currently in, that investors are filing against Palantir. An organization is actually trying to recruit investors to testify against Palantir Technologies, how they believe Palantir Technologies has been misleading investors, which has led to investors experiencing significant losses in their investments. Now, I will tell you my thoughts about this, but if you want more information, you can see that on screen right now. You can even contact them through a phone number or their website, as you can see on screen. But I want to go over my thoughts on how I don't think this lawsuit is going to pan out the way they think it is, because I don't think they're actually going to be able to get much money from this, and I'll tell you why. They basically filed a legal complaint, and they will go to court with Palantir Technologies over 5 main issues, but I'm only going to highlight a few. The first one I'm going to address is number 2 on their agenda, and that is saying that Palantir actually overstated the sustainability and the growth of their overall government segment, especially when it comes to their overall revenues. In the third bullet point that they highlight, and the second one that I'm going to highlight, is Palantir was experiencing a significant slowdown in revenue growth, but really didn't communicate that to investors or customers, which misled people to invest into Palantir while their stock price was increasing, just to eventually have their stock price crash and investors lose a lot of money. Fourthly, they didn't think Palantir was being very transparent with the likelihood of how the company was going to miss their consensus estimates in terms of their earnings per share and their future outlook. And the organization that is filing the lawsuit against Palantir Technologies also believes that the company just wasn't transparent or real with investors on the future projections and outlook of this company over the long term, thus misleading investors, which caused them to lose a lot of money. Now, I think these are good points, and there is a chance where something may come out of this, but I don't think this is actually going to work. Why do I think that? 1, when an investor invests into the stock market, they are taking upon the risk of losing everything that they invest. It's their own risk. Palantir didn't have anything to do with that. This is why we always need to make sure to do research on our companies and not overexpose ourselves too much to just a single risky growth company. This is why I personally have risk management policies in place where I don't invest over a 5% initial allocation or portfolio weight to a single growth company. Now, apart from that, I also don't think that this lawsuit will fly very far, because Palantir has always said that their projections are not law, meaning that their projections are just forecasts that could always change. And they have reiterated this multiple times in earnings calls, and they have reiterated their forecasts a multitude of times. So it's not like they weren't keeping investors up to date or telling them something that was blatantly false. They were saying that we anticipate something which just didn't happen, which is very normal for a forecast. Now, I think this is getting investors into a little bit of a rut, because they probably most likely jumped in too early when this company was super hyped, and they probably lost a lot of money. And the reason for this is because they jumped in too early and they didn't practice proper risk management, and they probably overexposed themselves to this company, and that's why they probably have major losses. Now, I do like like this company, but again, I don't have major losses on this company because I practice proper risk management, and it doesn't matter how many times or how many people I tell not to overexpose themselves to a single risky growth stock, they still do it because they always think they know best. So it really doesn't make sense why everyone thinks they're a professional investor when literally probably only 1% of the population are actual elite investors that build wealth over the long term. This is why I always advocate for the majority of people just to invest through index and ETFs or mutual funds of sorts, and then some of your portfolio can be allocated to single growth stocks or single stocks that you particularly like. And that's why I just don't think this lawsuit is going to get very far, because these are just very angry investors that believe that they were misled, but the ultimate reason why they lost money on Palantir is because they jumped in too early, despite videos from me saying it's good company, but it's going to crash here, it's going to go down to this particular price target, but over the long term, I think it's going to be okay, and I still stand by that. I'm going to be in this company for the next 10 years, and even if the company goes to zero, it's not going to bother me. Why? Because I only have a 4% allocation to the company, so even if it goes to zero, I'm not really going to lose a lot of money. At most, I'm going to lose like $4,000, so it's not like I'm going to lose a lot of money, and that's just proper risk management. There's a plethora of other fantastic companies on the stock market that you can diversify into that's going to save you from downside risk. Now, there's a small chance where they do successfully sue Palantir Technologies, but not a lot of good is going to come from it. It's just going to hurt the company's reputation, it's going to cause the stock price to drop even lower, and there's not going to be a large payout for the investors involved. So I really just think this is a lose-lose situation overall. Now, finally, let's go over Palantir's Q3 results and what I think of this particular company. Well, right now, Palantir is currently set to release their Q3 results on November 10th of 2022. And this is going to attract a lot of attention from investors because the stock price is literally either going to increase or decrease after this particular earnings report, like it does with most earnings reports, unless it just trades sideways. But I'm going to give my opinion on where I think the stock price is going to go. Mainly, we want to focus on the company's commercial clients and their commercial results, because I've been saying this for probably 2 years now, that the commercial clients for Palantir are going to be their new bread and butter. That's the thing that's going to make them profitable in 2025 according to current projections, and they are going to be able to scale their US commercial clients much faster than their government clients. And this is why I expect to see Palantir increase their overall revenue and revenue potential in terms of their commercial segment, not their government segment. Now, on top of this, I do want to mention that Palantir has actually cut their top of the line results for the second quarter and the third quarter, which we will be talking about right now. But first, I want to get some good news. The good news is that their commercial clients have been scaling very nicely. For instance, Palantir grew its commercial revenues by 46% year over year as of Q2 of 2022, which is a fantastic growth rate. Anything over a 30% CAGR, which is their compounding annual growth rate, is a company that is rapidly expanding and increasing. So at minimum, we want them over 30%, and we also want them over 30% for another reason, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The commercial business of Palantir Technologies is looking very promising right now because Palantir has grown its commercial business by around 3.5 times faster than its government business as of Q2 of 2022. And this is exactly what I was talking about over 2 years ago, that their commercial clients and their commercial segment will outpace their government business over the long term. And I don't understand why people didn't believe me when I said that, but I've literally always stuck by that and I've never taken it back. The main reason for this is that Palantir has a huge advantage in terms of healthcare, which is a huge sector of the stock market that is going to be very good even during times of uncertainty. This would include pharmaceutical companies, biotechnology companies, insurers, providers, regulatory agencies, and research organizations. To put this into perspective, Palantir, just in regards to their healthcare commercial clients, it's literally one of their fastest growing businesses, where this particular customer base has grown by 267% in terms of their revenue that Palantir is obtaining for the first 6 months of 2022, which is absolutely insane. This is why Palantir is going to continuously grow even during an economic recession. Now, where they are going to get hit very hard is their free cash cash flow expectations for quarter 3 of 2022. And this is not going to be that impressive. For instance, for the third quarter, it's anticipated that Palantir is going to report free cash flow between $60 and $65 million, which would be around a 7% improvement, which is not the best. Now, for their revenue, they've actually had it guided that they're going to bring in around $474 to $475 million in revenue, which is pretty good, but it's not going to suffice investors. Why? This would mean that the company has actually reduced its overall revenue growth rate down from 30% originally, because originally they had a 30% CAGR for the next 5 years, at least until 2025, and then that 30% dropped down to around a 25% CAGR for the next 3 years, and then that 25% dropped again to where it's now apparently only going to come in at around 23%, which is not good. As you can see, this is a very negative trajectory, and this is going to harm investors' outlook of this overall company, because we're going to have to wait longer and longer and longer just to get any stock price appreciation back on our initial investments. And that's why I don't think the quarter 3 earnings report for Palantir is going to be a good time for the company overall. I also want to highlight 3 risks that Palantir is going to be facing in the full year of 2022 and in this particular earnings report. For instance, management of the company currently anticipates that the company for the full year will bring in around $1.9 to $1.902 billion for the full year of 2022, which would be, like we said, a 23% revenue growth rate, which is substantially lower than the original 30% growth rate that management said that they were going to bring in, and then they lowered that to 25%, and then they lowered it again to 23%. Who knows, it might even go lower down to 20%, but we're just going to have to wait and see. But regardless, this is definitely going to negatively impact the overall future stock price. The next thing is, like we talked about, the free cash flow. It's going to disappoint again in quarter 3 of 2022 with poor cash flow performance, which is going to offset the overall bullish and positive sentiment surrounding the company, which means we could anticipate the stock price dropping after this earnings report. Lastly, if the company sees further deceleration in their top of the line growth, again, we could see long-term problems in the overall stock price, where Palantir's fastest growing segments are still not enough to support the overall company, which would push the company even further down. Now again, this is only short-term fear, uncertainty, and doubt. These are not set in stone as of right now. These are just forecasts and projections. Clearly, Palantir could have an earnings beat, or they could have a revenues beat or a cash flow beat, which could increase the overall stock price temporarily, but the current forecasts really don't look that positive from a professional basis or an educated view. So despite these risks, I still think that over the long term, over the next 10 years, Palantir still looks like a great company, especially now that they have that IL-6 authorization to land phenomenal cloud-based work from the DoD, which is definitely going to come in handy. But we have a lot of negative news pushing the company down, such as the lawsuit, which we talked about earlier, on top of a probably very negative quarter 3 earnings result. So with that being said, always stay safe, don't over-allocate yourself to any one singular growth company, smash the like button for more videos like this one, and I will see you in the next YT video.